It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Friday, February 9th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Now, today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Until the End with Daniel Baker, the Wednesday Message Word Study, and of course, commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, the weekend is finally here. I am so excited just to have this rest and relaxation. It's the last day of my work week for the podcast. Hope you guys have been enjoying it this week. I know that a lot of people are going to their hometowns and they're going home for the weekends. People have been driving for hours, especially here in Malaysia. So I hope you guys will all be safe as you drive home and meet your families. Don't forget, we have Q&A Thursday every week, so get those questions ready and send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, for today's video, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. Now, this week's Sunday message title, I repay according to the good and evil people do. So, some of you may be wondering, some of you, I'm very thankful and grateful that you were telling me that my voice sounded very hoarse yesterday, and it is just a lot of going around, busy schedule. I played sports today. I played volleyball, and when you play volleyball, there's tons of communication. You're always talking out loud and stuff like that too. And my voice, I can feel how hoarse it is right now. But I'm very. I had a really good day too. Right now, I'm still I'm so burnt. That burned feeling where you put a t-shirt on and you want to take it off because it keeps rubbing against the sunburn and it hurts. It stings kind of like that. So my arms, my shoulders are so red and it's really hot to the touch. I've been putting some aloe gel on it. There's this really cool aloe gel that you put in the fridge and then you can put it on your burn spots. So it's really nice. I just put it on right now. So my skin is very cool at the moment. I think my face is not really burnt at all because I've been wearing a hat and sunglasses. But I think my shoulders are going to peel definitely pretty soon. And I don't think I'm going to go swimming for a while either. In Malaysia right now, it is Chinese New Year. Well, it's Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year Eve, right? And the people here call it reunion, where they meet with, I'm not sure who they meet with, maybe with family or whatever it is. But I know tomorrow's going to be the first day of the Lunar New Year. And they go and have breakfast or dinner with they have breakfast with their families or something like that. And then the next day they have breakfast with their families again. So it is very quiet here in Kuala Lumpur. Very quiet, right? But I have a question for you guys. For those of you guys going back to your hometowns and, especially in Asia where Chinese New Year is such a big thing. Just curious, do you guys really want to see your family in this type of a setting? So I'm not saying that you don't want to see your family, but in the setting of Chinese New Year, tons of people are coming over. It's really busy and crazy and stuff like that too. Do you guys like Chinese New Year? That's kind of one of my questions, because I question in my head why anyone would want to be stuck in traffic from anywhere to 7, to 10 hours. I was talking to my friend today, and he was telling me sometimes you can have a 2.5-hour drive that turns to 12 hours. Literally, it's 12 hours. And I was like, what? Do you guys even, I don't, wow, just to go through that to see your family? I would be like, hey, let's all meet the week before so we don't have to go through that craziness type of thing. But do you, is it worth it to you guys to go through that traffic hell? And do you consider it good quality? Do you consider it quality time when you go back? Even though it's craziness, do you find it good quality time? Or is it just a headache at home and you want to leave it as soon as possible? But you know what? I think sometimes we don't know what to expect, but we don't know that it's so crazy until we get there. I don't know. But for me, I'm Chinese New Year for me, none of my family's here, obviously. I don't celebrate Chinese New Year, so it's very, very chill. I'm just hanging out with some of these members that are visiting from Korea. Oh, by the way, we had like a volleyball meeting. And I'm going to tell you guys, it was inspiring. It was so inspiring because when you think about volleyball, volleyball is not like this major sport in Providence. It's definitely soccer. Like soccer is the big one. And these two leaders of volleyball, one's internal, one is external. And it's crazy. They bought their tickets like 5 days before actually traveling here. They came with absolutely no like preparation, meaning they don't know anything about Malaysia. Like they're fully trusted in me kind of thing, right? But it's really, really interesting. The person we had a meeting today with the volleyball team or the volleyball organization here in Malaysia, and it was awesome. Like I'll tell you something, guys, that I think this is one of the like best benefits when you have like these people from Korea coming. Well, not all of them, obviously, but like some of these people are very, very. They're just great people, and they're connected, and you could see why Sunseem chose them. These people wrote a letter, like about coming to Malaysia, and asking like, hey, what can I say to them? And Sunseem's like, oh, I'll be with you, but they got a letter back in like 3 days. It's crazy. You know what I mean? So they get a letter back right away, and this volleyball, the volleyball teams here all met together. There's like 40 people on Zoom and stuff like that because it is Chinese New Year, and like for me, it's so mind blowing that at a time like this, the situation that Sunseem's in, and when you think about it, for anyone to get a letter right now at this time, I think is incredible. And I think that's something that no one would ever expect, that you could get a letter. But this, like the volleyball organization and team they have here got a letter back from Sunseem. Like they're delivering the letter to them. And Sunseem wrote 10 proverbs for the volleyball team here. I was so blown away. Like for me, I'm just like, wow, just to get a letter. Like I was so happy that they even mentioned me. Like, oh, Pastor Sky invited us over to Malaysia. Like they thought it was a good idea for them to come to Malaysia, right? And I was just like, wow, they mentioned my name. But getting a response, like you guys are, it's so, I don't know. I'm not sure about if you guys are your mind is blown as much as me. I'm speechless right now. Well, part of it is because it's like 1:30 in the morning right now, but I can't believe that they got a letter. And I'll tell you this, the preparation for what it took for this entire thing to happen, it all happened within like less than 2 weeks. And it was all of a sudden like, okay, they're coming. Okay, you want to meet them? Okay, and it just all turned out. And then I think just the meeting itself is worth just the fact that they got a letter from Sunseem. And it's volleyball. Like in my head, I'm just going to be very, very honest with you guys. I would think to myself, volleyball would be the last thing on Sunseem's mind. Don't you think? Like with all the things he's going through right now, but he's so like caring. He's so careful with everyone, and he's making sure that everyone is taken care of. And through like these leaders, they're not just connecting volleyball in Korea to Sunseem. Like they've connected Japan volleyball, they've connected now Malaysia volleyball, and most likely there's gonna be another report heading out and stuff like that too. So it's really, really exciting. Especially, I think it's very meaningful that this meeting happened like right before Chinese New Year, because usually during Chinese New Year, this is when people get super relaxed, right? But to have this type of stimulation, it really, really makes you want to like, okay, Chinese New Year, what are we going to do? We got to figure out how we're going to make volleyball work out. You know what I mean? Like you could start like really, really taking the 10 proverbs, getting the guidance that you need. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I should just do like a volleyball tour. Like in the foreign countries that have volleyball. Like I wouldn't mind going to like Taiwan next and just talking to volleyball and then connecting them and stuff like yeah, for me, it's just mind, like, I don't know. I think I said it like 20 times already. My mind is still blown that they got a letter. Because in this time, I think it's impossible to get one. And for them to get one in 3 days right before, they bought a ticket 5 days before. They got the letter like with like 2 or 3 days left before they came. So for me, I was just like, that's so crazy. Like, and here's the even crazier thing. I was talking to one of the pastors, the internal leader, and she was telling me like, hey, don't get their hopes up that I can't guarantee that they're going to get a letter. I was like, hey, don't worry about it. They're just going to be excited that you're here. They'll get direction as long as you talk about the things that Sunseam said in the past and give them some guidance of how they guided Korea or Japan or whatever it is, right? And then we're like, oh, by the way, I'm like, what? They got a letter? And that's how exciting it really is. Like, this is a second meeting they had. They met the internal leader on Thursday. No, what day is it today? Today is Thursday. They met the internal leader on Sunday, and then they met the external leader today, like on Thursday night. And it's just exciting. And to hear how thankful and grateful the Malaysians really were, like even for me, I was thankful, like, wow. Like, most churches aren't even getting letters. Right? Wouldn't you say most churches or whatever is getting a letter from, like, it's going to be Sunseam giving direction to HQ or something. This is the volleyball team getting a letter. So yeah, I don't even know how I want to express it even more than this, but it's all worth it. Like, this volleyball external leader came at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I got there early, and I had to be a good host, so there's no choice. I had to get a Starbucks coffee, guys. There's no choice, by the way. And we left at 2:30, arrived at the church at 3:30, got some sleep. I was supposed to get like the podcast done in the early part of the day, but I was just exhausted. And I got home by 4:30 a.m. and I showered and I just crashed. And then, then the day started. We went out for lunch, got a coffee, and then we had volleyball practice, and they were running a clinic, like a volleyball workshop. And then after that, we had games. After that, we had dinner. Then after that, we had like the big meeting and stuff like that too. So yeah, I was just knocked out yesterday. Like, and today we played like 5 games and ton of fun, right? As different players came from different churches too. And now it's like almost, yeah, it's like 1:30 a.m. I'm exhausted, but I'm very, very happy. I'm very happy. It's the last day of the Lunar New Year. Yay! Right? Even though no one in the West actually celebrates it, right? And right now, the traffic is awesome. Like in KL, everyone left already. So I'm downtown and it's empty. I got from downtown to my house in like 18 minutes. So quiet streets, relaxed, and very, very much enjoying my time, right? So that's one thing. Now, here's something very interesting is, remember I did the Sermons in the Sky about freedom and truth? I got a couple of, not like DMs and stuff about people telling me about, like, they're like, yeah, it is such an important thing. Like, it's something that we expect in this history to have that freedom and truth. And I was talking to one friend, and they wrote to me about the struggle with figuring out what God wants for us, and also struggling with what other people, especially leaders, will try to push people into doing things that may not be God's will, right? But just what those leaders feel is right for that person, right? And, I do think there has been this time in the past where people I think this is something that we have to kind of really think about carefully, discern really well is when we put too much trust in, like, I'm not saying don't trust your leaders. I'm totally not saying that. I'm saying when you put way too much trust in your leaders, right? Like feeling, oh, they're so spiritual. They know God's will better than me, or they might know something that I don't know, kind of thing, right? And I think one of the reasons why we put a lot of trust into our leaders is because as human beings, we struggle with figuring out what God wants for us. Right? It's kind of like a normal thing. Like, is this really what God wants? We second guess ourselves and stuff. And sometimes we think, sometimes we kind of have it in our heads that God's will for us is something completely different than what we want for ourselves. Don't you guys have that thought sometimes? That what we want to do, but we just feel inside that God doesn't want me to do it, kind of thing, right? And we kind of get afraid that God doesn't want what we want at all. Yet, the interesting thing is, the word still says that God will eventually fulfill our hopes and dreams. So I think I was thinking about this, and I thought one of the major issues we are dealing with is kind of like media. And I'm not saying media as in the newspapers and the internet, social media, not that type of stuff. Media meaning the media mindset as in we're very, it's what we put out to members. And we usually only hear like one side of the story, right? We only hear stories about, we hear a lot of stories about people who ran full time, gave up all their dreams, and then God allowed them to fulfill their dreams, right? So it's like, oh yeah, something like maybe their dream was to evangelize their parents, and they spend all their time doing full-time work, and then eventually but God eventually allows their parents to be evangelized, like that type of thing. And everyone, after they hear those stories, they're in so much awe. But then when we hear so many stories about full-timers putting their dreams aside and doing this and that, sometimes we start to feel like, oh man, I need to throw away everything that I want. Everything that I want in my heart, I can't have it, right? And this is the only way that I can run in this history. Like, I kind of feel sometimes we do kind of bring ourselves into that position where God is not saying throw away all your dreams, right? I don't think so. Sometimes we don't hear enough of those stories where people have fulfilled their dreams. They became doctors or lawyers, businessmen, entrepreneurs, getting their dream jobs or getting the dream salary that they wanted, and they did it together with God. I don't think I've heard many of those stories. I always hear the ones I give up everything and then God gave everything back to me, right? And I think that's just part of the stories. And I think it's true. Sometimes we do have to give up certain things because it's not a part of God's will, or it's something detrimental to us. But it's really interesting because I think we mainly testify about those full-time stories, mainly because it's the full-time people that actually testify. And it kind of skews us to think that we all need to take that type of path, right? But there are plenty of people who wanted to be something, wanted to be a certain job or whatever it is, and they got it. They did it together with God. And I think it's probably because we just don't hear enough testimonies from all different walks of life, right? Because, it's interesting. Like, I would think, like, why wouldn't we hear those testimonies? And I'm not sure why. Is it because maybe these people don't feel that their testimonies are worthy? Like, that's possible, right? Because they're only hearing these full-timers that are giving up their dreams. Maybe it doesn't feel like their testimony is that big. Is it because they don't get the opportunity? Or people are not asking about these types of testimonies? I'm not sure. I have no idea. But there are testimonies out there that are just as amazing and graceful, that God is fulfilling their dreams, getting the jobs that they want. And I'll tell you this, guys. Remember that full-time people is only like 10 to 15% of the church, right? 10 to 15% is full-time providence. That's it, right? It's not the vast majority. The vast majority are dealing with like work life, going and working in a business, being an entrepreneur, going through those ups and downs, right? So I think it's something that we do need to hear the testimonies of each other. We do need to hear about how you've always wanted to be this and God fulfilled your dreams, right? God allowed you to get into a certain major. God got you into a certain company that you wanted to get into too, or whatever it is. And I think that's a really, really important testimony that people need to hear too. I think it's very, very important, right? And it's something where it's true, right? We struggle a lot, and sometimes we are people in love try to push us towards a certain direction, right? Like be full, like, when you hear leaders that are, like head leaders and stuff like that, yeah, they're always looking for people to run full time. It's not a bad thing, guys. Yeah, if you're a head leader and you don't have enough workers, it's pretty natural to always be looking for full-time people. I think it's very, very natural. The hard part is you don't know which people have God's will to run full-time or not. That's the hard part. But, they're really, really trying to find more people to do that. So that's one of the messages I got. And I thought it was a very, very good thought, mental exercise. The second one is another message I heard. Someone else messaged me. And these types of messages, the content of it makes me upset. Not because of them. It's when I hear when members are so one-sided in their thinking, right? Like they're too focused. What does that mean? Like they'll say, "Hey, don't do this. Like don't study more. Don't go and get your PhD, or don't try to get another license here and there." Why? Because you can get it all from Sunseem's word. This is one of the things I completely I disagree with, right? Because I think people should research. I think people should get educated. I think they should study more if they're really, really interested in it. If someone ever told me, "Oh, you don't need to get your MBA. You don't need to get your business." Why? Because it's all in the Word. My response would be, show me. If you say it's in there, then tell me. Where is it? What have you learned about business from the Word? And if they just say generally like, "Oh, come on, Sunseem said it's all there," how can you tell me that if you're saying that it's all in the Word, but you can't even give me a certain example, then they're just saying it not because they know it's there. They're just saying it because, "Oh yeah, because that's what Sunseem said, so it must be there." Now, I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not saying the Word doesn't talk about business, right? I'm not saying that, right? But, Sunseem has told us many times to learn from experts. Learn and see how things work or how to do things better. So get educated. Learn from these. Get your, if you're inspired to, go get your master's. If you're inspired, go get your PhD. If you're inspired, go to special classes. And some of them cost tens of thousands, but it's still something that you're learning from these experts. Like, how many people would die to listen to have a sit down with Warren Buffett if you're into business and stuff like that, right? Or investing. That's something people would die for, but you have to pay $150,000 just for that, right? So for me, one of the things that I realized is it's only when you have experts or become an expert do you start to realize how deep the Word is in every subject. If you only know the Word, sometimes you don't realize how deep or amazing the Word actually is until you learn deeply about a certain subject. And then when you learn that subject deeply, you can see the Word inside every subject. Right? For me, I'm an advocate for learning from experts. Right? Learn from experts. I believe that most people should go to school. I believe that you should get at least a basic education. And very, very few will take a different path, not going to university, not getting a higher education, and only walking the spiritual path. I think there's people going to take that path, but it's going to be very far and few, right? So it's something where I thought it was a very, very, that kind of stuff is these people have no idea what they're talking about. When they just say, "Oh, it's all in the Word," right? No, you're going to have this is what I find very weird. I find it very weird that if you have someone inside Providence, they don't want you to study and become an expert, and you should just study the Word. Yet, if someone gets evangelized from the world and is the greatest lawyer or whatever it is, and they've studied so much and they've become that great, then we're going to respect them so much, right? So we're respecting them because they have super high education. They're an expert in what they do. They haven't learned the Word, but when they come to Providence, we'll respect them because of what they've gone through in their life, right? Which means we do respect the education and the hard work they put in. But when you're in Providence, it's like these people don't want you to, they think that the only way to learn is the Word and that's it. There's nothing else. But if that was the case, then Sunseem would say, don't go to school. But he doesn't, right? So, it's a very, very interesting topic. And I'm in most cases, of course, there are some times where I would suggest not to get an MBA or a certain one because you can learn it better in a different way. But in most cases, I'm straight up yeah, why not? Go learn from an expert. Go become an expert. Become an expert, right? And, especially in the world, you're going to gain respect not because, you're going to gain respect because of the school you came from. You're going to gain respect because of the results that you made, right? So it's something where, yeah, I'm kind of against when people say, oh, don't study that anymore because you can learn everything in the Word. And if they truly, truly believe that, then I would tell them, okay, then what'd you learn? What do you know about business? What do you know about psychology? What do you know about sociology? What do you know about chemistry? What do you know about biology? Like, I would ask them, what'd you learn from the Word about it? What deep thing did you learn? Right? That is the same as what experts say. Right? And in a lot of cases, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to know. They're just going to kind of go off of what Sunseem said. Right? So for me, that's something like, yeah, I don't think that's a very good way of thinking about it. But, that brings me back to the original thing that I kind of want to talk about is, does God want the same things that we want? And I would say that I'm not sure if he wants what we want, but God wants us to be happy, right? So if there is something that we want, as long as it doesn't lead to a dangerous path, where it doesn't lead to harm, it doesn't lead to death, right? Then I think God is going to be something like when I talked about freedom and truth, I think God absolutely wants that for us too, right? Because I think one of the greatest questions that stumps people the most is, are you on the path that God wants? And I'm going to tell you in general, if you are in this history, you're on the right path. Right? You're in this history, whatever job you have, on the right path. You're in this history. If you're doing the basic faith and living the life as a bride of God, you're on the right path. Right? If God just had one single path for you and that was all there was, that means there's no need for free will then. But God takes our free will into consideration. Absolutely. Right? God usually doesn't stop you from doing something unless it causes physical or spiritual harm or death. But I do think sometimes because we're so uncertain, we get a little too paranoid, or we second guess everything that we do. Right? Like, it's really interesting the way the human mind is, because we can think about something for the right amount of time and we can make a decision. But then you give someone too much time and you'll start second guessing what you've actually realized already. You know what I mean? So, I think in most cases, the choices and the things that you do, discuss and go with God. Discuss it, go with God. And in most cases, you will not be doing anything terrible or in most cases, you're not choosing anything terrible or bad. And in most cases, you will be doing and learning as you go. You're going to make mistakes, normal, right? Mistakes are going to be made even when you're on the right path. So one thing I would tell people is don't lose yourself in those moments. Know that God is with you and he truly, truly loves you and wants you to do well and be happy. Right? Go and become doctors, go and become engineers, go and become entrepreneurs, secretaries, accountants, workers, whatever it is. The most important part is whether you do it together with the Holy Trinity or not. That's the most important part. Whether you take them along with you into your work or in every aspect of your life or not is the most important part. So I would say stop second guessing yourself. Stop thinking that what you're doing is meaningless because it's not full-time work in Providence. All work in this history is meaningful. All of it is, because we do it together with the Holy Trinity, right? There are those that will be inspired to do full-time Providence, and that's fine. Let them do it. And the vast majority, which is like 80 to 90%, are not running full-time Providence. And they don't have to. There's no need to force anyone. Just let God do his work. God will inspire and move people to do things, right? It's not you to force people into a certain way, right? I would say it's very, very rare for someone to be absolutely predestined to be something. Very, very rare. Because the vast majority of people are going to be doing things with their relative predestination, their choice and free will. And people have it. God gave us free will and choice. So let people have freedom in this truth. Let people be happy, do what they think is best between them and God. So I'm not trying to advocate that do whatever you want. That's totally what I'm not saying. I'm saying is do what is best through your discussions with you and God. Get advice when you need the advice. Take the advice to heart, but it doesn't mean it's law, right? So, I think it's something that, leaders have a lot of struggle with. But, my big but is this. Yeah, my big but. Let me talk about the side of leaders for a second too, because I've been a leader before, and I kind of want to give you like an insight of what a leader goes through too, and why sometimes we get a little bit extreme. Being a leader in Providence is not an easy thing because you're given the responsibility, the mission to be the steward of an entire church and every person that's in it. And guess what? You do not report to just any ordinary person. You are reporting to Sunstein. Everything you do, especially the bad, gets reported. And I would say there is a fear that leaders have when, oh no, letter was written to Sunstein about you, right? Fear of being cut by the Lord, disappointing the Lord. And then especially there's a fear of like having shame, being taken down as a leader, not because you wanted to, but because you did something really bad kind of thing. Like, there is healthy fear. Everyone needs healthy fear so that we can do things properly and not cross any boundaries or lines, right? But there's also an unhealthy fear where people are doing things only to not make Sunstein unhappy and not doing their mission properly. They're not taking the risks that they should take, right? And I'm going to tell you, sometimes it's like that for the head leader. Sometimes it is. Especially when the main thing that, say, upper level leaders are looking for is they basically only ask for your evangelism numbers. Like that's the only thing they ask for, which can turn very toxic. Because if that's how we're being judged by the numbers of people we evangelize, head leaders become way more focused on the numbers, more than taking care of the actual members themselves, right? It's like a boss who cares only about money. And all the perks are given to those that hit the right numbers, right? The sales numbers. So what happens is if the boss only cares about you reaching a number, then people will cheat and do things unethically just to hit their numbers. But, sometimes you're going to find these team leaders that are terrible to their workers. High turnover. People keep quitting. But they always hit their targets. They always get their bonuses. But then no one wants to work for them. And it's super toxic because it gives no incentive for people to do things well or treat their workers well, but it gives them only incentive to try to hit a number. So think about this on the flip side. Imagine you have an amazing team leader, so amazing. Team loves working in that company because of that leader, super productive, but there's no incentive because you only incentivize those that hit targets to get their bonuses, even if their workers hate working there, or even if there's a high turnover rate. So you kind of get to see that sometimes the focus is off because of of how people, our churches, our leaders are being judged. So that's why I'm trying to say to you guys too, sometimes you need to understand from the leader's perspective too. They're coming in with love, and they're also coming in with a certain motive because that's how they're learning what being a good leader really is. It's not easy to be in that type of position. Now, I'm saying that, I'm not saying that every country has this type of culture, but I would say that sometimes this type of culture is so ingrained that you cannot stop people from thinking this way. Like I told you guys, people thought I was a great head leader because we were good at evangelism. And the people think your church is doing well, right? Because of only evangelism. Like that's the only marker of a good head leader, which I think is one of the markers, but it's not like the only and greatest marker that a leader's doing well. So with that as an example, I would say that, sometimes we have to realize where the leaders are coming from too. That the health and wellness of each and every member is second to getting those numbers. And everyone is really, really focused on getting those numbers more than taking care of each other and doing things in a really, really like amazing and awesome way where everyone feels loved, everyone is happy. And when that happens, we're actually going to get better evangelism because people are actually happier and people come to the church seeing that people are happy too, right? So that is something that, that's something that I was thinking about. Well, because of these DMs that people are sending me. People have these bad experiences all the time. Like leaders trying to not force them, but really pressure them into being full-time runners. Or one thing that I got was like, oh, you're the first in Canada, you have to go back there and run. Now, that's what I hear all the time. It's like, oh, in the very, very beginning, oh, you're so special. You need this. You must become this or that or this. But it's kind of like, why? Like, what makes them really, really know what my future is when they're not God? Like, nowadays, I'd probably look at them and say, so did you pray? Like, did you set a condition for this to know that I'm supposed to be going back to my country and have to run full-time Providence? Is that what you're saying? Did you set a condition for this, for me? Or is this just your thoughts, right? Just a feeling that you have, right? Like for me, it's something where it's not that I have mistrust. Well, you know what? I'm not sure what the right way to put this is, but I think a lot of it has to do with just past experiences that cause us to doubt, right? And the people that, that they could be even better right now than the leaders that we experienced in the past. But when you go through something in the past a lot, you can't help but to think a certain way. But I really hope that all of us here, that we'll really be able to make things work out into in a better way also, that we can really support each other and make sure that we can build a great culture that is not based solely on numbers and how many people we evangelized. But yeah, that's kind of the thoughts that I've been having. Write down in the comments what you guys think about this too. Okay? So before we get into the Wednesday message word study, let's first get into the first break of the day. right, so let's get into today's word study. And every Friday we have the Wednesday message word study. This week the title is exactly the same. I will repay according to the good and evil people do. And there are, I believe, like 35 proverbs that came out, and I want to go over a couple of them and what was I inspired by these ones too. So let's start off with the very first proverb, which is, people live without knowing the grace that God and the Lord have granted them. They also live not knowing the wrong they are doing against God and the Lord. Now, I found this proverb to be very interesting because I believe in most cases, like when you're in this history, you know the truth. We know when we are doing wrong, and we still do it. Now, this is very interesting because it's like people live without knowing. Like we know, it's just that we forget or we don't really feel it, right? And we know when we're doing wrong, we still do it. But if someone doesn't know they are doing wrong, they don't know the grace that they have received, it's usually because of two reasons. And I thought number one would definitely be because you're ignorant, which means you're not in this history, you don't know the truth, right? Or sometimes people are doing what is wrong, or they don't know that they're receiving a ton of grace, because they believe that their thoughts or what they are doing is really what God wants, but in reality it isn't. And I think those are probably like two of the big reasons why we don't really know God's grace and what God is doing in our life. The second proverb was, people who live not knowing their wrongs are people who fail to realize even if they're living in death. People who do not know they are living with grace are people of faith who are dead to grace. As a result, excuse me, sorry. Sorry, that's a double sneeze, but it says, as a result, the drought of grace continues to happen. They are people who live in their domains according to their deeds. Now, this is interesting because I think this is something that's been coming out a lot in these last couple of weeks, of not knowing that they're living in grace. It talks about two people. There's a people that just truly don't know what God is doing for them, the grace that they're receiving. And then it says the people of faith that are dead to grace. And if they could continue to live this way, the drought of grace continues to happen. And, if you guys have, the Bible talks about grace, and this grace is so amazing because this grace, according to the Bible, is what you call an undeserved gift. There's nothing we have done to deserve the Messiah dying on the cross. There's nothing. No one can say, I deserved Jesus dying, like being beaten and tortured and dying on the cross for my sins. It was a free gift from God, and not a single person deserved it in this world. Right? No one can boast that, salvation was for me. But when we look at this grace, we look at it and say, wow, he didn't have to do that. And because he didn't have to do that, I am more thankful. I can only thank God that even though God didn't have to do this and not a single person deserved it, he truly, truly loves us that much because of his grace. And I think it's something that we need to realize, as even being in this history as people of Providence, realizing the grace we've received until this point, the grace that we have received by Sunstein being in that place right now. There's a ton of grace right there too. So that was it made me think very, very deeply. The third proverb, only if you are clean will you live with a clean person, and only if you know will you no longer be blind and live with others who know. Right? And, it's basically like, if you're clean, then you'll live with clean. If you know, you'll live with people who know. And it's interesting because it makes me think of the opposite. Right? Because it means that only those that are clean you'll live with a clean person, which means if someone's dirty, they're going to live with a dirty person. And I think it kind of shows us how much we really need to understand those that do not know, right? Like people who do not know this history. They haven't realized this history. We can't expect those that do not know to understand those that do know, right? We're on completely different levels. We can't expect someone who is unclean to understand someone who is clean. And it kind of made me think about like newcomers or people who are still learning, and we shouldn't put like too high of expectations on them. Why? Because they don't know. The fourth proverb I liked was number 4 is a person who receives grace in vain is a person who doesn't know it even if grace is given to them. They are people who don't know it is a treasure and fail to use it even if they are given a precious treasure hidden in a field. They are people who don't know the person who saves them even if they see the Lord. They are people who lose salvation as a result. Yeah, I find these verses about these proverbs about grace really interesting. About not understanding how much grace you've received, which makes me think, where is this coming from? Are they coming from letters of people who do believe, or is it like possibly something talking about the people who are inside the prison with him in that room with like 25 people in it? Is there someone there, like when he talks about how much grace you've received, even if you've met the person that God has sent? Yeah, I think grace. Yeah, grace is something. I think we've forgotten it. Right? I think we've forgotten what grace truly is. Like, something gives us another definition too of grace. Grace is to realize. And if we do not realize how much grace we've had, well, if by Sutzi's definition that grace is to realize, it also means that if we don't realize we're not receiving grace, right? We need to get to a point of realization. Like, there's a lot of different things that I was looking at. Like, there's so many things that I'm not really sure about, but I should be sure about even more. Number 7, big things come only when the time comes. Only after everything is done will God finally take action on it while revealing it through the person God has sent. Only He knows. Therefore, only those who follow Him will participate in the grace. The part that made me think was after everything is done, then God finally takes action. Because I think like these big things, they're only coming when the time comes. And of course, for everyone in this history, we're all waiting for that big thing, which is obviously what with Sunseem's situation. There's something that all of us truly, truly want. But what God is saying to us is wait. Just wait until everything is done, then God gets to work. And that kind of combines with the next proverb that I liked in number 9. It says, the people who take action following him wherever he goes will inherit that time period and the eternal kingdom that pertains to him. And it makes me think about whether we will be those, like, are we going to be those people that are going to be together with the Lord during this difficult time? Or are we those that kind of just wait and do nothing, and only when everything starts working out and only when God does his big thing that we start to get working together with the Lord again? Right? We got to be with the Lord wherever he goes. Number 20, sometimes God's time comes at a time of the worst suffering and tribulation. And at that time, he carries out the greatest will. At that time, he carries out the greatest will. And for me, this is a hopeful proverb. Because it's kind of where we are right now, at the most difficult, worst suffering and tribulation. But God's saying, sometimes God's time comes at the worst time. And I'm like, whoa, because we're at the worst time. So I'm like, wow, does that mean it's actually going to happen? Like something's going to happen at this time. And it kind of gives me some hope. Number 28 says, a person who doesn't see correctly cannot make himself perfectly and correctly. And then the one right after 29 says, only when you see correctly will you know how much God loves you. And God will carry out God's history of love only on those who know. And I like these two verses because it's about seeing correctly. And what does seeing correctly do? 2 things. Number 1 is it helps us see correctly both ourselves and how we see ourselves and how we see God. Right? If you can't make yourself, if you don't see correctly, then you cannot see what is wrong with you. You cannot see what needs to be fixed or changed. It's like sometimes people do get delusional. They think that they don't have any faults. Where, usually in most cases that there's usually a fault on both sides. But if we really, really want to see God correctly and see ourselves correctly, it's only when we perceive correctly too. So I like that one. Number 31 says, since everyone goes forth receiving according to their deeds, you can't follow while walking with the Lord if you don't follow with all your heart. I think that's true. I had a conversation with someone yesterday. It's like, how many people can really literally walk with Sunsteam every day, all day? People not die, but they're not going to be able to handle it. To all the work that Sunsteam does, can we handle that type of lifestyle for a week? I doubt it. So if you can't follow, if you don't do with all your heart, then you can't follow the Lord. The next proverb is just the same. You will follow the Lord's path only if you follow with all your heart, will, and life. Right? That's the only way. We got to do it with all our heart, will, and life. Because if you don't, you can't follow the Lord. It's that difficult. It's too hard. But you got to do it with all your heart, will, and life. So yeah, those are some of the proverbs I really liked from it. You guys can put in also what proverbs you like too. But yeah, definitely great proverbs this week for the Wednesday message. Hope you guys really enjoyed that too. Okay, so before we get into Until the End with Daniel Baker, let's get into the second break of the day.
You lift me up from falling. I feel your warm embrace, breathing life into my withering spirit, pouring out your love and grace. So I think to myself, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. You pulled me out of darkness so many thousands of times. You gave me strength and courage, everything that I need in life. Look at all the countless blessings, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand what it means to be in providence, holding God's truth in our hands, we fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. All the wondrous miracles you've shown, only here in Providence. Providence, push forward, we'll run till the end. With our solid faith, we'll repay you with all our heart, will, and life. And now the seals are broken, the treasure's now revealed. You've shared his highest wisdom, valued secrets of how to live. Looking back at all the memories, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand, what a blessing it is that you're here, acting with God hand in hand. We've received the greatest rapture, we've gained eternal joy. This is God's final history, never will it be destroyed. Providence will shine our brightest light for your dreams. Your word fills the earth. Yeah, we'll preach, gain all that you want to achieve. Even if the world forsakes you and they don't understand, we're more than proud to be here, holding God's truth in our hands. We fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. Your words, your precious providence, we'll cherish it till the end. Providence, we'll stand till the end. Providence, we'll live with our God. Providence, love God with our heart, will and life.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment of the day and the entire week. And of course, all of us looking forward to this. This is Daniel Baker over there in Korea, and this is Until the End.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Do It Until the End podcast. I hope everyone is having an amazing week with the Trinity. And let's end off this week really well. It's very interesting. I changed my environment drastically, right? I moved out of my house over by Warmdong. I'm living somewhere else doing work. And as we said in the past, when we're talking about habits, it's very environmental, right? As your environment change, your habits are prone to change, which is very good and very bad. If you don't take this opportunity to change your habits or improve your habits or make sure your habits are primed for productivity, then you'll kind of miss the chance and you'll fall back into old habits, right? So it's a pretty good time for me right now to really focus on my habits and make sure we're doing well. This week is Lunar New Year. Nice. Korea is having Seollal. I have a four day weekend or 4-day break from my work, which is going to be a lot of fun. Meeting my family, having a great time. So today we're going to talk about the third law of creating a new habit, right? So the first law was to make it obvious. The second law was to make it attractive. But the third law we're going to talk about is talking about the actual habit itself, right? The tangible habit that we need to act upon. How do we manipulate this habit so we can do this habit often and make sure it becomes a really good habit, right? Now, the third law is to make it easy. Okay, so let's go into the third law. And the third law is actually, it consists of 5 subpoints, right? Which is like 50 pages in the book. So I'm going to split it up into 3 today, 2 next week. So the first thing we really need to understand is that practice is much more important than planning. We need to focus on action, not emotion, not just making it into it. It's like if we just think about something and we leave it as thinking, there won't be any change within our life. We need to act, right? It's such a philosophical thing, but also connected to the message. So the number of times performed is much more important than the time performed, right? When talking about a habit. It makes sense. If you've done something 100 times within the last 2 weeks or last month, then your brain is much more primed to do that activity than it is if you're doing that same activity only 10 times for a year, right? So like once every month. And it's really important to understand that the number of time performed is much more important than the actual time, right? Repetition is key, okay? So how do we replicate or make sure that a habit is easy enough to repeat. Now, we're going to talk about 3 subsections. Okay, so the first subpoint is to reduce friction, right? So to decrease the number of steps between you and your good habits, right? So let's say your habit depends on, let's say your habit depends on an object, right? Let's say you want to brush your teeth, right? If you have to find your toothbrush and you don't even know where your toothbrush is, and you have to find your toothbrush and you have to find it for 5 minutes, and you have to go through your bag and see it, it's you're going to have much more friction to brush your teeth, right? If you're trying to make a habit of brushing your teeth and I'm going to brush my teeth 2-3 times a day, right? Will it be easier for you to brush your teeth if it's in your suitcase or if it's in the bathroom? Also, it's cutting out the fat of a habit and making it easier. Another way you can think about it is the more you understand about something, right? The more unambiguous it becomes, the more easy it is, right? Cutting out the fat of being ignorant about a subject, right? So let's say you want to, you have a habit, or you want to make a habit of doing or having a skincare routine, right? So what does the toner does? What does the lotion does? What does the BB cream do? What does all these things, what does it mean, right? If you understand when to use them, how to use them, it's much more easy to understand the habit and achieve and do the habit, right? So what you want to do is you want to cut the fat within your habits, right? You need to add by subtracting, okay? So that was the first sub point. It was about reducing friction within that habit. So the second sub point is you want to prime your environment. Prepare your environment to make future actions easier, right? A very nice habit to include, which is something I've been using, but also something I think I've talked about on this podcast already. It's about resetting the environment, right? So it's not only about cleaning up after yourself, but it also means preparing for your future actions, right? This is something I've been using a lot. Every time I leave the room, I want to just make sure it's clean. I know where everything is. That's something that I've been able to do really well. But what you want to do is you need to prime your environment to encourage that behavior, right? So if you want more water, right, have a water bottle next to you at all times, right? Then you'll sip it, you'll drink more water, you become more hydrated, right? You want your supplements, right? You want to eat your supplements every day? Put it in a place where you can see them a lot, right? Put them on the kitchen counter, right? Don't put them in like a cupboard, on like somewhere you can't even see them, right? If you want to work out, prepare the night before. Prepare your shoes, prepare your and put them right next to your bed. If you want to read more, put a book right next to your bed, right? Prime your environment, very important. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is we need to master the decisive moments within our day. What does this mean? It means to optimize your small choices to deliver the max impact. Okay, I'm gonna explain to you what I just said. Okay, every day there's a handful of moments that deliver an outsized impact, right? These are small choices within our day that either make our day or loses our day, right? If you do this one thing, the decisive moment, if you do this one thing the correct way, you're going to have an amazing day, right? If you do it the wrong way, you're not going to have a really good day. These are decisive moments, right? And why is it a decisive moment? It's like a small thing, right? It's like it's a small thing, right? I should be fine. I should be fine not doing this for once. But the issue is that your choices in life, okay? You need to understand that your choices in life determine other choices. It determines your options you have in life. Okay, what does this mean? It means, it's like, okay, a very good example is, okay, me and my friends, we decide we're going to go to a Chinese restaurant. So at the Chinese restaurant, will you be able to eat sushi? Will you be able to eat steak? No, probably not, because you went to a Chinese restaurant, right? Let's say your friends like pretty much pushed you to go there and you didn't even want Chinese. You're not going to have a great time, right? So your options are constrained by what it is available, and it is constrained by your past actions, right? And that puts more emphasis on your habits, right? So, you need to master these decisive moments, right? They can really make or break your day, make or break your habits, right? So what could be a decisive moment within your day, right? Let's say it's something like, let's say the decisive, there's multiple decisive moments, right? But a really big one for me is me cleaning my face in the morning, right? After I shower, I use a really special soap, and to clean my face. And after I clean my face, I used the toner, the lotion, and then I put on sunscreen. If I do this, I feel amazing, right? I feel super clean. I feel like I've got out of the sauna or something like that, right? I don't know why I feel like that, but that's how I feel. And because I feel like that, or that's how I feel, I'm able to make better decisions and have a better mood to go against my different decisions I need to make within the day, right? So that small decision, right, really improved my mood, right? And my mood would give me other options. And so I really want to ask you guys, because this is the end of the podcast, right? Think about your typical day, right? Your typical day, the day you have like 4 to 5 times every week. What is a decisive moment within your day that is reoccurring that you can share with people, right? I want you guys to share like I've done, right? Inside the, go into the comment section below. Tell me about a decisive moment within your day, which can either make or break the happiness within your day. It's pretty interesting. This concept, when I read it, it's pretty interesting. And I really want to, see your guys' comments, and I'll talk about it in the next episode. Yeah. I'm really curious. Yeah, because for me, it's like washing my face with soap. It's like exercising, making sure I get my steps. A lot of different things are decisive for my happiness or for my different habits. And I really want to understand what decisive moments you guys have. That's all I have for you guys today. To everyone who is going until the end with this Trinity, let's walk this path together. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.
And thank you, Daniel, for another wonderful episode of Until the End. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. He would love to hear your feedback on it too. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is today's Friday podcast. Hope you guys super enjoyed it. It's past 2 a.m. over here right now. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this just as much as me. I'm always looking forward to listening to your comments and responding to them too. And if you have any other questions, anything else, go ahead, leave them in the comments or DM me. All right. So there it is, guys. Enjoy your weekend. And man, it's pretty crazy. But on Monday's going to be the 12th, which means we're going to be we're getting full on, like ending the second week of November by Wednesday, which is crazy. But either way, all right. So there it is, guys. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you guys on Monday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm